I mean, ultimately, you ended up quitting.
Yes.
How many years did you serve?
16.
16 years. What was the final straw for you?
The final straw is when we had a captain who became overfamiliar with a Mexican Mafia member. As a result, it created a dangerous and hostile situation on the yard, Bravo facility, which ultimately resulted in that Mexican mafia member and his entourage, his goons, stabbing numerous correctional officers and almost murdering them, attempted murder on a peace officer. And I responded to that as a crisis response team commander and as a public information officer. So I was wearing dual hats.
Mm-hmm.
And we had known this was something like this was bound to happen. And I was working for that warden at the time that we mentioned, and they covered that up. So when they covered that up, there was an associate warden who blew the whistle, and he blew the whistle via email, statewide, to everybody's email account. And then he retired that day. Well, I get a call from Sacramento, from headquarters, telling me, since I was a public information officer, that I have to type up a letter to the media refuting the associate warden's allegations in the emails.
Huh.
And I was naive at the time. I'm like, why would I refute these allegations if they're true? And I'm like, oh my goodness. They want me to cover this up. And then she told me 5 minutes later, don't worry about it. Who was it? Associate Director so-and-so already typed up a letter to the media. And when I read it, I mean, it's on the news. She said, CDCR headquarters has full support and authority of the warden. We trust them. All these allegations being made by these associate warden are unfounded. And I'm like, unfounded? How can you find something unfounded without a proper investigation like one day later? And that's when I seen how high the corruption went. The corruption went all the way to Sacramento. After that, she was 4. My daughter was 4 years old at the time. And I could feel that she was feeling a certain way. Like maybe I was bringing negative energy home. And I chose my daughter and my family over the job.
I mean, you've said that the prisons are run by Sacramento.
Correct.
And the inmates are run by Pelican Bay.
Now all those members are every prison. There is no more Pelican Bay SHU. There is no more Death Row San Quentin. Now at every 33 prisons, approximately 33 prisons, you have everything in every one of every kind. It's a mixture.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, for example, I had Lazy Boy, a rapper from San Jose here yesterday. He's a norteño. And what we talked about, and this is, I've heard this from norteños and sureños, when these guys are growing up, when they're teenagers, a lot of them think they aspire to get life in prison and be in Pelican Bay and be a shot caller while doing 23-hour lockdown. Like, this is something they aspire to, which to me is just insane to even think like this. But you've seen this type of thing.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Why do you think that Mexican gangs actually think this is a feasible future?
No different than me being young and joining the military and being told I'm going to go liberate the country of Iraq. Is when you're young, you're impressionable. And this is something that I've learned. When you're young, you're full of testosterone. You need guidance. You need direction, right? And you can either go this way, that way, or that way, but you're going to go somewhere and you're going to go all in. I mean, if you're a young male dating back to, the beginning of society, that is the route that they choose, and I see it. I see it now for what it is. And the reason why I say I see it now for what it is, because when I was a lieutenant in the prison system, I would have individuals that were 60 years old, 50 years old, and they had dropped out of their gang. And I said, what took you so long, man? Like, you're older already. He's like, I just got used. I was a pawn in the game. And I'm like, yeah, you were, right? Because every one of their stories was the same. And that's something I've realized about any organization, whether it's the military, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's the Mexican Mafia. You're being told what to do. You're a pawn. You're aspiring to go to the top.
Yeah, I remember X-Rated in our first interview, which was actually done over the phone in jail, but then we talked again a few days ago on camera, and he compared gangs to parasitic organisms, where basically the parasite doesn't care about the host. The gang doesn't care about the various members. They're just being used to do crimes and so forth. And when they go to prison or they die or they get shot, doesn't matter. They get replaced. There's a baby or a little version of that person's name that continues the history of it all, and it all continues, and ultimately, the people aren't really taken care of and so forth. And, I've interviewed a lot of guys that have done 20 years, 30 years. They've all said the same story. They come out of prison, there's nothing waiting for them. Whatever money they put aside is gone. If they put property in other people's names, they don't want to transfer it back to them. Yes, a few people look up to them and so forth, but there's no big prize, even if they don't snitch, even if they keep their mouth shut and follow these street rules. There is no win at the end of it all. They come out, they're older, they're felons, they can't get jobs.